the DOJ has announced that it is spending $231 million on bolstering red flag laws that would temporarily take guns away from individuals who have been deemed violent or a threat. Now, 19 states and the District of Columbia have red flag laws. It's just that even though they've passed legislation, they haven't really implemented it to the extent that they could. So the DOJ's thinking here is maybe the funding will help them actually carry out the policies that they've already voted in favor of. Now, some of the $231 million in funding will also go to crisis intervention court proceedings and other gun violence reduction programs. I just want to note that in a country that is swimming in guns, $231 million does not sound like a lot of money, especially when it's supposed to both help support the red flag laws and also fund some of these other gun violence reduction programs. But I don't know. I mean, we hear all these figures thrown around, billions and billions of dollars for this. I mean, military funding is over $800 billion at this point every year, and it continues to go up every year. But Francesca, so far, what do you think about what the DOJ is doing here?
You're absolutely right. It's a drop in the bucket, but at least it's a start. It's saying we're not gonna sit around and wait for Congress. We're gonna actually see the tools at our disposal and get going, get to work. I am very curious how this is going to play out. Does it mean, little ad campaigns on the back of bathroom stalls, which is something, but will it also involve protecting people who might actually call in someone who they believe is violent, or combing police databases and records to make sure that this person doesn't have a domestic violence charge? I know that red flag laws would not have prevented a lot of the mass shootings we have seen, especially those done by, again, kids who just aged into the AR-15 eligible bracket. But it absolutely will cut down on things like, again, domestic violence disputes that often end in femicide, for lack of a better term. That is the term, killing of a partner.
Yeah, in fact, I'm gonna skip ahead since you referenced that, because it's a really, really important point to emphasize here. So unfortunately, even if you elect the right lawmakers, even if the party that you think is gonna do the best job with gun control is in power, we still have a huge problem with right-wing judges who seem to be more concerned with activism than doing what's right in protecting Americans. So unfortunately, a federal appeals court has decided to strike down a domestic violence gun law. The US Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled the government can't stop people who have domestic violence restraining orders filed against them from owning guns. I mean, Jesus. So it gives you a sense of how you have this entire political system, complete with the judiciary, that will provide cover for the insane laxed gun laws that we have in this country. But let's get back to what the DOJ is doing. I mentioned the $231 million. That's all part of a $1.4 billion piece of legislation provided to the Justice Department over 5 years for gun violence prevention, okay? So it's part of a larger piece of legislation that has more appropriated for this, which is a good sign. It's a good start, but obviously we need more. The funding will be given for the creation and implementation of risk protection programs that would allow family members, schools, law enforcement, and healthcare providers to petition a court to temporarily prevent a person from accessing firearms if they are deemed to be a danger to themselves or others. One other thing I wanted to just quickly mention to you, Francesca, or actually ask you about, because I've been thinking about this a lot. So it really depends on how the red flag laws are written, and it's gonna vary from state to state. What I'm concerned about is personal biases. And so if we have gun rights in this country, the gun rights should apply to everyone equally, right? If you have certain elements of government, like law enforcement, for instance, involved in actually implementing these red flag laws, could personal biases play a role in who they determine to be a threat in confiscating guns? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, in terms of like disarming like communities of color, going after Black Americans. I mean, the Philando Castile, those who had licenses to carry and were murdered anyway. Yeah, I mean, to say nothing of the fact that if the cops are the ones implementing this, they don't have a great record themselves when it comes to, being a little trigger happy, as it were. But yeah, I think that's a really important point, and it means that there needs to be an arbiter for gun violence that isn't the cops, right? Like, what is the force? What is the body? And honestly, I also think the body that will protect those who call in their family members. Again, this is what I'm saying. If you say, look, I know my uncle, he's armed to the teeth, he's crazy, I don't want him to do anything. But also, if you are petitioning for a red flag law to be, or a red flag, I guess, strike or something to be placed on that person can never find out that it was you who called that in, because what could happen? You could die, right? That puts you in harm's way. So I think that's a great point on who it's going to be applied to equally. And a lot of these things, it's never applied equally. And the last thing I'm gonna say is give people money. Like gun buyback programs. I know we love to talk, or the right loves to be like, Venezuela. No, it's countries like Venezuela, which is rife with also gun violence and gun ownership. They do gun buybacks. I know we have that on a local level and statewide levels. There's sort of fits and starts of gun buybacks. I say give people money to turn in their guns. Give people money to also, if they not turn in their relatives, but if they flag somebody who could be dangerous, they should be rewarded for that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. As my dad likes to say, Anahi, the cash is talking. He means to say money talks, but no, I mean, a financial incentive, I think, is going to be far more persuasive than anything else. So I would like to see some money appropriated for that as well. And we've seen in the past how gun buyback programs, not just in this country, but in other countries, have been pretty successful. But this is a start. It's something, and it's more than what we've seen for decades now when it comes to any action on common sense gun control.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. We really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.